perspective is everything. You can take 10 people who go through 10 traumas and you'll have 10 different outcomes. Why? Because life isn't about what happens. It's about how you hold it. It's about how you perceive it, hold it, and navigate it.
Welcome to the Lara Jane Layton Show. This podcast is for you, the person who keeps putting others first. Your self-talk has held you back. You no longer need to take a second seat. Let's explore ways to overcome self-doubt. You can silence that inner bully voice and achieve your full potential. Here's your host, Lara Jane.
Welcome to the show, friend. I have a repeat best friend with me today. I am so excited. I reached out to Indhushree and said, hey, help us, because she was so amazing before. And her prior episode is linked in the show notes. So Indhushree and I are going to talk to you about your authentic self. Who are you? Who are you today? And are you living the life you want? And if you don't think you're living the life you want, how can you create it? So we're going to talk about how can I create the life I really wanted? So the information about her is in the show notes. But before we get started, we're going to get a quick word from our sponsor. We'll be right back. Hey, since I rarely have openings in my coaching schedule, I have a new resource out there on my website. It is called the BFF Coaching Network. And I have offered a spot there for any coach that has been on this show to list their coaching. You can go out there, you can listen to their episodes, you can feel a little bit about them, and then choose a coach that will work for you. So LaraJaneLayton.com, the BFF Coaching Network. All right, Indhushree, help figure out, I have a pretty good life, but there's definitely things that I would love to add and bring into fruition for the rest of my life. So how do I create that life that I want for my future?
Yeah, that's a question that I wish more people would ask because, we have a lot more power than we think we do. And what I love about my job is that I get to meet different people and help them get in touch with all of the things that they have. I want you and your listeners for a moment to imagine that you have a color palette, that the sky is a canvas. You have all these brushes and you have a color palette of every color that's in existence. But you only use 3. You only use 3 of those colors. And if we only use 3 of the colors, then we only use a little teeny tiny part of the canvas, right? So if we only use 3 of those colors and maybe we like those colors, that's great, But when we have thousands of colors, we only use 3 and about this much of the canvas, we really limit ourselves in terms of what we can experience in life. And we also limit ourselves in terms of how we see each other and how much we accept each other, how much we love each other, right? And ourselves, most importantly. So that image, my hope is that by the end of the show, everyone will get in touch with more and more colors that they actually have on their palettes. So
this is kind of fun because in my head, I'm imagining this huge, long palette and all the color changes I've been through, because I've reinvented myself in a sense multiple times where I am never doing this again and moving on. And I can just imagine this beautiful painting with just graduating to new colors and more colors.
Yeah.
And whoa, what color do I want my future to be? And how do I figure that out to start with?
Well, what you just said is so important, right? We as human beings live in this life, walk on this planet, dealing with relationships, dealing with jobs. We have to survive, right? So oftentimes to survive, we reinvent ourselves. So my biggest question is, when you've reinvented yourself, has it been because you've wanted to or because you felt you've had to? Has it been reactive or has it been responsive and intentional, right? And I think that's the biggest thing is that most of us are caught in some kind of a reactive energy. And when we're reacting to something, we can't really be present to the fullness of who we are. We really are just dealing with this thing or dealing with this person or dealing with this job. So the first thing is to recognize that everything you do, it comes from a choice, right? And if we look at choices, how those break down, usually there'll be a strong feeling or a strong thought or a strong belief attached to that choice, right? And the trick is to reclaim your power in this process because you have a lot and all of us do. And I think reclaiming your power in this process and understanding what your life narrative is gives you the insight that you need to know that you can change it. No narrative is inevitable, just like no feeling is inevitable. No thought is inevitable. It's all up for grabs. We're able to move into that space, use all of these colors, and use the full canvas that's waiting for us. Yeah.
And do we choose to paint over the past or just keep going? It's like, I don't need to change the past. I just need to create my new future, right?
Mhm.
And so I would say in most of my reinventions, it's been adding more colors, more
Mhm.
things, more stuff. But of course, I've had the purposeful ones and the just to survive, I got to do this.
Mhm.
It's like,
That's
it's fun that some of those survival moments, I think were my best reinvention, where
right. Mhm.
I learned so much at this rock bottom spot that I was able to rebuild a foundation and create what I was really looking for.
Mhm.
We don't always get that pleasure, but
Mhm.
no, you always have the opportunity to have that pleasure. We don't always take it.
Absolutely. We always, I mean, that's the thing. Every moment is a new beginning, every single moment. But we tend to, and then I think you brought up a good point. Do we paint over the past or we just move on from it? And I think the answer to that really has to do with how we deal with the past, right? If we have shame or guilt or anger or, whatever that's negative about the past, and we're not able to fully accept what happened, then it kind of cuts our legs out from under us, right? It kind of makes it so that we're really not able to move on in a way that's real and true, because we're invested in hiding stuff that we don't want to look at, we don't want to accept. So the first thing is to be able to what you just did. I love what you just said. Is some of my reinventions when I've had to survive have been really powerful and have been the most rich. What does that have to do with acceptance? You've accepted it in a way that is coming from love and compassion and appreciation about yourself. Right? But a lot of people will look at the past and go, "Oh my god, that was so horrible. I'm stupid. I'm this, I'm that." And so rather than moving through that, they just don't they wanna paper over it. They wanna toss the canvas, get a different canvas and start over. Starting over is good, but, we carry with us what we don't look at. We carry with us what we don't heal from. And so acceptance becomes really important so that we can truly leave it behind, so that we can truly move on.
What you're saying brings me back to my fish and bird story that I share all the time. But, if you're a fish and you're being raised by birds
Mhm.
and you're constantly shamed for not being able to fly more than a foot out of the water and splashing back in, and you're being pushed and pushed and pushed, as long as you think you're supposed to measure up to a fish, I mean, to a bird, you're going to feel shame.
Yeah,
You're going to wonder
absolutely.
why you're so different. But the moment you go, I like to swim. I like to dive deep. I like to sit in the calm, cool water and I embrace this. All of a sudden, it doesn't matter all those lessons about how to fly that you kept getting pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed to learn. You now go, I don't have to fly to be worth something.
That's
And so
right.
it's just really knowing who you are and who you want to be.
Mhm. Well, what I love about how you framed what you just said is that you said, "It reminds me of the story," right? Story of the fish and the bird. And
Just
and it's just a story, right? But we're able to tell stories, and really, if we think about it, life is story. everybody has a story about what's going on. Everybody has an emotional connection to certain characters in life, certain plot lines, certain things that happen, and we just don't like other ones. Other stories do not fit. We don't like it. They're scary or they're painful or whatever, right? But what I love about how you just described that story, you told that story, it holds what? It holds a belief, it holds feelings, and it holds thoughts, right? So, what's critical about the fish being able to enjoy being a fish and really lean into swimming and splashing and all the cool things that fish do is to change the story. The story is not, I am a failure because I can't fly. The story is, oh, I'm a fish. I realized I'm a fish, and look at all of the cool things that fish can do, right? So we shift our feelings about who we are, and we shift our thoughts about who we are when we are able to identify the belief that doesn't work for us. And this is the thing. People think of beliefs and are like, oh, well, we assume that a belief that we hold deeply is true. But you know what? Just because we believe something strongly doesn't make it true. Just because we have a strong emotion, again, doesn't make it true. A pervasive or repeating thought, not necessarily true. It's what we have conditioned ourselves to be. It's how we have conditioned ourselves to respond, to react, to interact, right?
Mhm.
All of that is up for grabs. So it's actually kind of cool because it means that whatever felt completely defining before, whatever felt like, oh my God, I guess this is it. I guess this is as good as it gets. I guess this is just the way it is. Actually, not true. We can have whatever we want. We can have the lives we want. We can become who we want to become. It's about what we're holding up here and what we're holding in our hearts too.
Right.
Mhm.
That expectation, is it the expectation I have of me? Or am I still following all the dreams of somebody else?
That's right.
The mother that never was able to dance, so she pushes you to dance and you don't wanna dance, you wanna go be a lawyer, whatever, it's
Mhm.
how do we let down? Because
Mhm.
we're not really letting them down. They have weird expectations, but how do we share that and say, "No, I don't wanna be in the family business. I don't care if the last 10 generations have been cops or
Mhm.
lawyers. I wanna be an artist," or whatever you're choosing to be, or vice versa. We're all artists. Quit trying, let's
Mhm.
get out of your brain.
Mhm.
Those people's expectations of us can be removed from our own personal story. But
Absolutely.
yeah.
1000%.
What's the
Yeah.
measuring stick I want to use for my success?
Well, and that's another really important point to storytelling, right? A good storyteller does their research, right? They wanna know, "Oh, you know what? I'm gonna tell a story about this. Let me learn more about what is maybe sourcing my desire to tell this story. Let me learn about what is important in the telling of this story." It's no different for us in our lives, right? Because if we're carrying a strong, narrative, I think it's critical to understand. Ask the question, is it my story? Is it my narrative? Where does this come from? Right? Because I think what we'll find is oftentimes the stories that we carry forward in life, we don't question enough. We don't question who gave it to us. Who told me this story? What was the context for this story, right? Stories that come out of abuse, for example, stories that come out of pain or broken relationships, stories that come out of, personal woundings or limitations, accidents, whatever. These leave a strong impression on us, but we always have to be willing to ask, is this true? Is it true? And is it mine? Is this really a story that reflects me? Because oftentimes I don't think we ask those questions. And so what happens? We unconsciously live out the story that is strong for us, that's really resonant for us. And it might be somebody else's story. It might be something else that has to do with, my culture, my race, my parents, my abuse, we have so many different sources for the stories we tell and the stories that we live out, you know? So we gotta know. I gotta know, where is it coming from, you know?
That is so true. And, really being able to dig down deep.
Mhm,
And it takes a while to sort through for me, it took a while to figure out what was my belief versus what is that belief I was told.
mhm,
And in this world of duality, it's right, wrong. But there are so many rights, like my right, the thing that works for me
mhm.
isn't what works for you.
Right,
That we're
exactly.
different and that's okay. And when
Mhm.
you can embrace that we all have a different way of our own personal expectations, our own story, our own life,
That's right.
then it's freeing. And when you realize the bird's not bad because
Mhm,
he can fly,
mhm.
those fish isn't bad because he swims.
Right.
Being able to understand it's okay to have a swimmer and a flyer and you can get along is,
Not greater than or less than, just
yeah,
different.
just
Just different.
different.
Right.
And it's hard because we live in duality, right, wrong, good, bad, but it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be.
Here's the thing, though. This is what I wanna give you another image. I'm gonna give you
Yep.
and your listeners another image. Imagine that you're walking into this beautiful garden, and you've got so many different kinds of flowers and plants and trees, right? It would be like going into the garden and saying, "Only roses are beautiful, so I'm gonna cut down everything else, and only roses. It's only roses that are the beautiful flowers." But the truth is, every single flower, every single plant, every single tree has an authentic beauty, an authentic rhythm, an authentic vibrance that adds to that garden. And and I think that's harnessing our own authentic magic, our own authentic passion, joy. I mean, that's what helps us to bloom fully because we're not, I think that, it's completely an unfair comparison to compare yourself to anyone else in the universe because there's only one you. You're a unique imprint in the universe, as am I, as are every single one of your listeners, right? A rose would not compare itself to the sunflower, right?
Or
So,
the other roses.
or the other roses for that
Like,
matter.
"Oh, you're yellow. Well, I'm red. I'm cooler."
Exactly, right? You also mentioned something else that is so critical, which is this idea of black and white, right? Either or, right or wrong, right? Good or bad. Um, that's an illusion most of the time, right? 99.999% of the time, life is gray. Life is a mix of all of those colors on the palette. And you might find a flash of red or a flash of blue or a flash of yellow, but ultimately it melds together, right? And so I think our experiences and our sense of self, our personalities are all the same. And so, really, the question is, what is your truth? What is your rhythm? What is your reality? Right. And I think if we're willing to be in movement and in process, then we're not going to stagnate. The right and wrong, the good and bad, the absolutes happen when we stagnate and we assume this is it. This is it right here. But actually, it's not. I tell this to my clients all the time. If you're trying to live in the either or, really tough way to live because life is and, you know, it's if you really look back on your life, it's and this and this and this and this. My guess is that if you were to try to go back in your past and like toss the worst year ever and say, I'm going to take a big old eraser to that year and it's gone, right? You'd be erasing a lot of blessings too. You'd be erasing some really amazing things that happened, right? Because life typically, what you've always dreamed of, what you've always wanted, what you love will come. But it'll come holding hands with things you didn't choose or things that maybe you didn't want or that you're afraid of or whatever. Life is a mixed bag that way. But if we can face that, then we're empowered to create whatever we want, right? It's when we're not willing to embrace the truth of who we are and the truth of how life is that we get stuck. And we end up living these lives of resignation rather than acceptance, right?
Yeah, I love the way you're able to articulate a lot of feelings that we have, and get it
Mhm,
into real words because life is goes on. And if something didn't feel right in the past, you know, figuring out enough, I like to say, what did I learn from this? What was the benefit of doing this?
mhm,
And that would, to me, it's like going to the gym. Had I not lifted the 5 pounds first,
mhm,
I may have never gotten to the point where I could do 50 or 100.
mhm.
So why would I want to take away the day when I couldn't even do 10 pounds? It's no, that is what built that strength that
Right?
all the other progression points that you had created. And without it, you wouldn't have got past 10 points. I mean, 10 pounds. And it's like, whoa. And, exercise is easy thing to do analogies for because we all understand it. We might not do it, but we understand it,
Mhm,
how to go from uh, not a six pack to a six pack. Lots of work, lots of straining, but you can do it if that's
mhm.
what you want. And so, what is it that you want? It might be difficult, it might be tough, but you can have it.
Absolutely. And you know what? The beauty of this too is you get to go at your pace. You get to find your rhythm and other people may not get it. Other people may move in a different rhythm. Other people may have gotten to a certain point before you, but this is the authentic, unique expression of your life. So all of these other pressures or comparisons or things that we want to try to use as measuring sticks, that we don't need them, because if you can look within and if you can learn, "Oh, you know what? This is who I am. I'm a fish. I'm a fish, and so this is what we fish do. This is how we navigate those waters," right? Then you can move into a space of the unknown with excitement, with joy, with passion, with all of those good things without fearing, what if I don't do this? Or what if this doesn't happen? We all get the what ifs, but how are we meeting them? And what you said is so critical. Like you said, you're choosing to look at the experience of the 5 pound weight or the 10 pound weight or whatever as incremental success. That's a perspective, right? Somebody else could come and say, well, you're a loser because you're only able to lift 5 pounds, right? That's a perspective. Um, but perspective is everything. You can take 10 people who go through 10 traumas and you'll have 10 different outcomes. Why? Because life isn't about what happens, it's about how you hold it. It's about how you perceive it, hold it, and navigate it, which is story, which is narrative, right? The story of the gym is, hey, 5 pounds, cool. 10 pounds, wow, look at that, I'm improving. Wow, 100 pounds, I never could have gotten here without those 5 and 10. That's a story we're telling ourselves, right? So imagine if from morning to night, Monday through Friday, Saturday and Sunday too, we're able to tell positive stories to ourselves. Imagine what life will start to feel like, right? I mean, I think we'd probably have a lot more joy. We'd probably have a lot less stress. We probably feel much better about ourselves and, have more hope when we look at the unknown rather than, oh my gosh, is this going to happen? Is that, because what are we doing when we do that? We're playing old stories. We've gone through experiences that have been like, whoa, okay, didn't like that at all. Right. Especially if you're a survivor of trauma. It's built into us, that strong survival instinct is, it's biologically wired. So it's kind of like, okay, not ever doing that again. Right. That there's a difference though between making that choice and learning from it, like you talked about, and making different choices versus assuming that that story is true. Because when we assume that that story we didn't want to be true is true, we set ourselves up to experience it again and again. Because life is not about, anything else other than your perspective and the narrative that you're walking out into the world, you know?
And I like the way it's like where you are right now
Mhm.
is perfect. You
Yeah.
know, I can be in junior high and I can beat myself up for not being as smart as the college professor, or I
Mhm.
could laugh at the kindergartner for not knowing all the stuff I know.
Mhm.
Where it's, in that situation, you understand that he's been through more school, he's been through less. But we do this in our daily lives. We make
Mhm.
fun of people because they're not just like us. Well, and I say we is there are people out there that do. And then you start feeling that shame of, oh, I'm not as good as so and so. It doesn't matter. You're
No,
you, and you are the only person you're measuring yourself to.
that's
So
it.
just be the best you can be today. If that means laying in bed all day or in a, what do they call that? Blanket fort, do it. If that means getting up and hiking, do it. Whatever your best is today is
Mhm.
all the expectation that you need.
That's right. And if we can meet ourselves, and hey, we all have bad days. We all have days where like, oh God, everything went wrong today, that kind of thing. But if we can come back to ourselves with compassion and with kindness, right? Then we're not going to internalize what happened in that day as part of a negative story, right? That we're going to tell ourselves over and over again. Right? It's so funny. It can happen within the space of a day. Like all of us, I think, have had the experience of, oh my God, I overslept. And oh, you're in the anxiety or the stress of, I needed to get up an hour ago. I can't believe I overslept. I'm going to be late to work. I'm going to be da, 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 da. Well, when we're in that mode, right? When we've overslept, that's when you stub your toe when you get out of bed, and then the shower's too hot, and then I spilled coffee on myself. It's like, gosh, dang it! I've got that meeting today. I got to go back in and change now because I just spilled coffee on myself, and then there was traffic, and on this road where there's never traffic. So, what are we doing, right? The attitude that we're holding, the energy that we're holding is what? It's creating more of that story. So it even happens within a space of a day, right? Whereas it's like, okay, I'm going to take a breath. I overslept, freaking out right now. Let me just take a minute. Already overslept. Why don't I take like 5 minutes and just center, right? Okay, now I need to just go about my day, right? And so, in the energy that when we catch that energy and we choose a different energy to be in, we create differently. Because the truth is, we're all creators, all of us, all the time. We create our lives. The question is, are you a conscious creator or are you a reactive unconscious creator? That's the big shift, right?
And I can be both in one day.
Oh, all of us are both. All of us
Like,
are both all the time. Yeah.
but
But
conscious is, like, really, how do I become the conscious creator?
Mhm. Well, that goes back to the understanding feelings, thoughts, beliefs. What's the connection there, right? So, one simple exercise I'm going to tell you and your listeners is how to be in the observing place, right? I'm going to do a little exercise here, and it's something that we do to ourselves all the time. And it makes all the difference in terms of feelings and what we're actually living out in the world, right? So if I'm describing my emotional state and I say, I am anxious, what have I done? I have basically stated, I am anxiety and anxiety is me. It's a closed loop. That means that, oh, well, I guess I'm screwed. I'm anxious. Okay. I've also reacted to an emotion and signed off on the truth of that emotion. I have not given myself any other choices in the moment. However, if I say, if the same feeling pops up, and if I say, I am noticing anxiety here, what am I doing? I've got a little space now. I'm the observing one, right? I am noticing anxiety here. That means anxiety is here, but there's the potential that other things are here too. Because right next to that could be peace. Right next to that could be happiness. Right next to that, you know what I mean? Like Rumi said, the poet Rumi said, "You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the ocean in a drop." We got it all right here. That means that we can draw on whatever we have every moment of the day. That example is really about observing. It's about detachment. So if we are able to notice, drop into that space of, okay, what am I noticing? I'm observing. What am I noticing in my body? What am I noticing in my mind? Oh, there's that thought again. Oh, there's that fear again. Oh, there's this. If we can just hold it like that, then pretty soon we're able to choose in the moment differently, right? And if we choose in the moment differently, that means that we can feel differently in the moment. That means we can think differently in the moment. And it means that whatever belief is pulling you forward can also shift, right? So, like going back to our oversleeping example, the feeling is, a panic, anxiety, fear, right? And the thought is, I'm screwed. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna be late. Miss this meeting. You've got these million thoughts that are running around that are fueled by the fear of being late, right? So that quickly turns into a belief. So what do the circumstances do? They reflect your belief and they give you more reasons to be late, right? So you see how all of that works together. So conscious creation is all about detaching and observing. That's the first big step is detaching and observing because usually what we do, we're like popcorn, popping, 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 popping. Something pops up. It's like, "Oh, I'm afraid. Oh, I'm angry." We sign off on the truth of it. When we do that, we are saying, "Yep, that's true." What we need to do is detach and look at everything that's there. So you get to choose what's true, right? If you're choosing what's true from a place of awareness, that is conscious creation. That's conscious creation. And you build on whatever that is for you. So if your truth is, I'm going to be happy today, no matter what, right? Then you get to choose those things that you focus on and you get to release those things that pop up that take you away from what you want your life to be, right? And that's how we start to create what we want, right? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I've used the phrase, I'm experiencing some anxiety to try and get away from that. I
Yeah,
am anxious. But I loved this. I see the anxiety,
mm,
because it's even another step away from it. I'm not
right.
holding it in me, I'm looking at it from afar. So I love that switch.
Mhm.
Um, and we do it all the time. I mean, lots of us do it often.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's easy. It's easy to say, "Oh, I'm so tired." Oh, I am physically exhausted at the moment, or however you want to say, I am experiencing exhaustion from my day. I'm going to rest. Give
Mhm.
yourself the permission to let it
And if you start
go.
with, I am noticing,
Yeah.
you're just observing it. You don't have to be it, right? I mean, let's say that you're experiencing fatigue or exhaustion and it's like really early in the day and you have a lot more to do, right? You're noticing. I'm noticing the exhaustion here. I'm noticing the fatigue. So what are my choices? What would feel good right now? Right? And then slowly you're able to get yourself back to having more energy, having more strength, right? You don't have to look at this day through a far end of the telescope going, oh my God, how am I going to get through this day? I'm so freaking tired, which we all do, right?
Or it's like, I need more coffee.
Right. Exactly. Right.
Lots of my colleagues have always said, I need more coffee. And I'm one of them. I need some caffeine.
Well, that's the thing, right? We want the quick fix. But the cool thing is we have quick fixes within that we don't connect to. Yeah. Hmm.
Yes, I can experience an energetic day without caffeine.
Yeah, that's right. And you know what? That's a belief, isn't it? I mean, I actually know people who are horrible until they have their coffee. You know, they're grouchy, they're grumpy, where you're just like, okay, I'm just going to avoid you because you need to have a cup or two and then we can talk. That's largely belief,
Mhm.
right? Because the truth is, you just woke up, and you don't have to be in a bad mood, right? And then there are people who literally experience the magic of their cup of coffee because their belief is so strong, to the point where they panic or they are angry if they don't have a cup of coffee in the morning. That's belief. Yeah.
It is, but you can be addicted. So caffeine is
Well, I'm not
addictive,
saying that coffee is not
but
coffee. Coffee is not coffee,
right.
but the
The m
strength, the attachment that we have to it,
Mhm.
the attachment that we have to the impact, because science tells us that placebo is a thing too, right? Why is that in our science? That science doesn't say caffeine helps people get more energy 100% of the time. No.
Nope.
Whenever we have any kind of medication we're testing or anything that we're doing in a double blind study, it's measured. Not everybody gets the medication, right? And some people feel amazing after taking the medication without having the medication. So what does that say? That belief is pretty strong, right?
It is kind of cool to know that our brains are really that powerful. When you really
Absolutely.
feel like you got this and you don't have a doubt, it
Mhm.
happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like,
Absolutely.
"Wow, that's so cool."
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, this is a study which I'll share with you. It was a really powerful study of these runners that was done where they had their brains connected, where they did a brain reading for each runner. One runner was on the track and he was actually running the course. The other runner was in a chair in an office visualizing running the track. And I mean, he felt the sun on his face, he felt the breeze in his hair, he was hearing the gravel under his feet, and he felt running. He had the feel, the sense memory, the sensation of running on that track. The readouts were the same. The brain readouts were the same for the guy that was actually running the track and the guy that was sitting in the chair visualizing running the track. So,
Now, don't you wish that it actually did the whole exercise too? All my muscles got all the benefit. Back in high school, my gymnastics coach used to have us do our routines in our minds over,
mhm,
at least 10 times a day, when
mhm.
we weren't at practice. And it was that same belief
Smart
is
coach. Yeah.
you are experiencing every move. Think of every moment where your toes pointed. How high did you jump? How much was the impact on your hands as you landed? And she would have you work through all those things so that that perfect back tuck was a perfect back tuck all the time, you know?
Mhm,
And it was fun. And so it is a lot of coaches do that. Imagine your perfect routine. Imagine what you're doing.
mhm.
Imagine your perfect day
Yeah,
and let it be.
absolutely. Mental rehearsal is powerful. And, it's really in your brain. The reason we have strong associations, the strongest associations we have in our brains are the ones that have been most often repeated. Those are the strongest associations we have. This is why we say that if you want to like create a new habit or break a habit, 3 weeks is the baseline for doing that. Why? Because in the 3 weeks that you're not doing something, or in the 3 weeks that you are doing something, let's say you want to go to the gym. You'll say you want to go to the gym 3 times a week. And let's say that, you don't like the gym. Your association with the gym is like, oh God, I'm going to be sweaty. I'm going to be in pain, whatever. Um, the more often you have that experience of going to the gym, your brain is going to break apart the old association and rewire and create a new association. And the strength of that rewiring depends on the strength of the associations. And that happens with consistency over time. And our beliefs in any way are no different. So, whether you're breaking a habit, creating a habit, whether you're trying to improve your self-esteem, whether you're trying to, really, really manifest and find that perfect, mate for you, want to have a boyfriend, girlfriend, married, whatever it might be, it's the same principle. So, is that pretty cool?
It is. It's amazing. I love it. It's kind of freeing
Hmm.
to know how much power we really do have.
We do.
And, it goes back to Kenny Rogers' The Gambler song, every hand is a winner
Mm.
and every hand is a loser. It's
Hmm.
all how you play the game.
That's it.
So no matter what hand you've been dealt, you
Hmm.
can win with it if you play the game. And the game of life is really being the
Hmm.
you that you want to be, creating that life you choose to live.
That's right. Absolutely. And we have so many examples of people who have overcome the odds, who have done extraordinary things in life. We've also have examples of people who have had everything and lost it all. We have so many different examples of this in real time, right? And really, it comes down to what is the story you're telling yourself, right? What is the story that dominates your mind, that dominates your heart? And if you want to change that story, you absolutely can. But we just need to figure out, okay, who's telling it? Where'd it come from? You know, why is this belief so strong? We can rework it. You always get the power of reauthoring your life, right? Plot points, characters, situations, obstacles. Life will throw that stuff at you. But you get the power of the edit. You get to edit your life. You get to reauthor your life. Which chapters stay, which chapters go, what what is the ending? Who's, what happens? We all have that power in our hands. We need to be consciously creating though. That's what it comes down to.
I can do this.
That's right.
It's like, woohoo, yes, this is going to be so easy. And if it's not, I can still do it.
That's right.
And,
And
get
mhm.
that's the mindset. What's your mindset going to look at?
Right. Exactly. And people get stressed sometimes, but sometimes people immediately deny this when I tell them this, or they get stressed out by it or whatever because expectations are operating. But remember, you have your own unique rhythm, you have your own unique style. You can have the pace that you want in doing this. So, whatever that means for you, maybe that means that you play with one of the shades of blue available to you and just mess around with that on the canvas for a while. Maybe you know what I mean? You get to decide how quickly this happens or how slowly it happens. But it's about learning how to hold the power that you have and accepting it, and then taking it out for a spin, and starting to implement it in your life, and as you start to do it in simple ways, you'll be surprised. There'll be a lot that you learn about yourself and about, "Oh, wow, why am I thinking that way? Oh, where did that come from? Whoa, what really? Okay, that's so not me." Yeah.
Have you met somebody that said, "Oh, I don't like that," and they go, "Oh, when did you have it?" "Oh, I've never had it." "Well, how do you know you like it?" You know, some of
Mhm.
our experiences we've been through, we chose not to like, and some of the things we haven't experienced, we are choosing to like or not like. It's
Mhm.
like you said, it all hits back to that mindset that what do we believe right now? And is it true? And if you don't want it to be true, what do you want to be true? Create that.
That's
And
right.
it's like, you don't have to throw away the whole book, just create a new chapter. Plot
Mm.
twist.
I'm changing it up. This is what I'm gonna be. Actually, it turns out that the whole doctor story doesn't work for me, so I'm gonna go do this, right?
And there's no shame. Yeah, you could have worked 40 years to get to this one place and decide it's not the one. You know how many people have reinvented themselves in their 50s
Oh,
and
yeah.
become major influencers on certain things, and you just go, "That is so cool." So,
Oh, yeah.
never too late
Yep,
to live the life
absolutely.
you want to live.
Never too late. We can start in any moment we choose.
Oh, it's just beautiful. I love it. How about sharing with our friend a little bit about you, what you do, how they can get a hold of you? And then I know we've talked about lots of things. What's that one thing we should do right now
Sure.
to experience some of this powerful mind?
Yeah. Well, my name is Dr. Indhushree Rajan. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and I'm also a life coach. And I have a private practice. It's called the Conscious Life Psychological Services. And you can email me at drarajan at theconscious-life.com. So I'm happy to work with people who are maybe, some people that come to me really are looking at, you know, releasing themselves from the power of the past. Some people that work with me are like ready to go and they want to create their lives, short-term goals, long-term goals. I do work with people who are seeking relationships or careers or whatever, whatever you want in life. So I enjoy helping people get in touch with their power and the joy of being authentically and fully who they are. In terms of all of the things that we talked about, what I will say is, I want you to think about, here's a fun exercise. Think about what your favorite story is, right? Could be a novel, could be a short story, could be a movie, or TV show or whatever. Who's your favorite character? And what do you like about that character, right? I'm asking you to do that because I want you to start to get in touch with the things that you really value about probably yourself. The reason we relate to characters and relate to certain stories and not other stories is because they speak something about who we are. So, starting to get in touch with who you are through a character, through a story. What is it that you identify with? What is it that makes you absolutely laugh harder than you could ever laugh? What is it that really brings those tears? What are the things that stir your soul? Right.
Mm.
And to not be afraid of what comes up, because a lot of times we live in this place of, I need to be resigned to live this life because this is what I chose. You don't. Dreaming. I heard the most beautiful thing about having dreams. A lot of times people stay in this place of minimizing their dreams, not speaking their dreams, speaking in that language of, I wish, if only, oh, well, I guess, that would have been nice. Your dreams are yours because they're meant for you. What you're dreaming about is not something to fear, it's something to embrace fully. Because the fact that you're having that dream says that your soul is prompting you to something that's yours. So hold on to that dream. Really play with it. Have fun with it and see what you create on your canvas. Start to play in those waters, start to play in those colors and see what you create.
Sounds so easy. Let's do it. I will definitely play with my creation and
Yeah.
see, I think that reflect what could I change to create a happier life and think through it.
Yeah.
I think I'm happy. Maybe I could
Mhm.
be happier. You know,
Write
who
down what are
knows?
the things that you want in your life? What are the things that you want? If money were no problem, if time were no problem, if there were no constraints on you, what would your life look like? Where would you live? What would you do? What kinds of things would you want? And really get into that list because that's your list of creation right there. That's what you're really putting down on that paper. And as you start to sit with that, then really experience the joy of it and see what starts to change on your path. Because what you're really signaling to the universe, what you're really signaling to your own soul is, I'm ready. This is me. This is what I want. So let's go. Right. And my guess is you'll be walking in a different energy. And that's the beginning. Right. Also, do that exercise of observing. Get into that observing place and start to notice things. What are you noticing in your body? What are you noticing about your feelings? What are you noticing about your beliefs? That will help you understand the story that you're currently living. And then you can ask, is this the story I want to be living? Is this my story? Because that's the beginning of everything.
Thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom, your experiences, all the knowledge that you've created, you've come into, you've learned, it's like,
Oh, I've learned. I learned the hard way too.
it's so nice to have someone be able to share so I don't have to experience all the bad things too. Not that I want to take advantage of you, but thank you for sharing and
It's my
helping us,
pleasure.
picture ways to live that better life. I really appreciate it. Friend, I am not a medical or mental licensed professional, just here to help you shine a light on your path so that you can see more clearly where you're going and how you're going to get there. So enjoy this week reflecting and figuring out what your best life is going to look like. Thank you, and stay tuned for the next episode.
Are you tired of waking up exhausted? You are not alone. If you're looking to take your life back, let's start with the simple step of adjusting your self-talk. Stay tuned for the next episode with your host, Lara Jane. Remember to follow the show so you don't miss the next simple step that you can use to feel more confident. And please leave an honest review.